Hello folks, it's time to talk about something not controversial at all, and that is Warhammer 40,000 lore in its current state. Hope you're all having a wonderful week. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, the Patreon button is also down below, as well as the link to become a member of the channel. If you do either of those two things as a thank you for supporting the channel financially, you will be entered into the prize draw that will take place on August the 6th, Sunday, August the 6th, with the top prize being £50 worth of models from Composite Games. There will be a second prize where we are giving away a Dark Angels Command box set. So basically the Dark Angels Deathwing Command Squad, essentially. I'm thinking of adding something else to it. If I get access to it in time, I will send it out there, and that would be a Primaris battle tank, the Repulsor, if I can get my hands on it in time. But we will see. We will see. So yeah, that's what you get for being a member of the channel or being a patron and helping support me financially. And on that live stream, we will be doing every single month from now on a charity live stream as well. So the prize draw happens, then we go right into a charity live stream that lasts for 3 or 4 hours, and we have a good time on a random Sunday. Anyway, let's get started with this video, shall we? So, as you can see, the title is, or will be similar to, did 40k need to move forwards in the first place? For a long time, I was somebody who openly campaigned for the setting to move forwards. I'll hold my hands up. I wanted it to expand and grow. When it started happening at the end of 7th edition of Warhammer 40,000 though, I don't think the timing could have been any better, quite frankly. The game had stagnated. The lore weighed down with memes and nonsense. That was about 30 years of concentrated baggage at that point. If there was ever a time when this wound needed to be drained, the start of 2017 was that time. So, I think Games Workshop made the right decision in moving things forward. But I can't help but feel that the chaotic nature of the lore has just gotten worse as things have moved on. Was I wrong to clamour for change so incessantly? I think maybe so. The thing is, we wanted things to move on, but we didn't take into account who we were dealing with here in terms of the writing team. This is the same company that unironically gave us the end times to finish off Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Did we really think moving the lore forwards with these guys at the helm was going to end in any other way? What are the problems with moving such a massive setting forwards in the first place, and how would we fix it? Well, let's dive in. First thing I want to go over is, yes, I have campaigned for this for a long time. I have campaigned for the setting of Warhammer 40,000 to move on for the longest time now. I did in 2017. I was really excited when it started happening. But sometimes you need to be careful what you wish for, and it's okay to admit when you're wrong. And I think in this, I was probably wrong. Because as you'll see from my attempts to fix things later on, I don't think this is ever something that really needed to happen. I think my excitement got the better of me, and I think I was wrong to want this. Especially in its current form. So, to know what we don't have now, we need to examine what we did have. So what did we have before things moved forwards in the old lore? Well, we had a setting locked into the 900s of the 41st millennium in terms of years. So, 900 M41 to 999 M41. The date never moved forwards from there, besides a few call forwards in the Caiaphas Cain novels, and even then, these were mostly done as satire and winks at the audience. For the longest time, the 42nd millennium was treated with something akin to the gloves that Games Workshop treats the missing Primarchs, It was this meme place where, things aren't quite real, like Malal, the 5th Chaos God and all that. They were all in the same place. The 42nd millennium was right there with Malal. It was right there with, all of the weird esoteric stuff that 40k is known for. Anyway, what this meant though, and I'm assuming that a lot of you can see some really negative connotations to this, it's not moving forwards, but what this meant was that the setting of Warhammer 40,000 was a defined place, with a defined sandbox to play in. The Imperium was a solid foundation on which to build. It was xenophobic in the extreme, inhumane, dark, but it did protect a lot of worlds and keep them from going completely off the rails. 40k was a great answer to the notion, how the hell do you maintain an empire this large? Well, to be honest, the answer in 40k was through dogma, domination, and creating others for people to hate and fear, namely Xenos and heretics. So this is another thing that the writing team back in the day got absolutely spot on. When a massive totalitarian state wants to basically rule everything, they will create others. They will create people that don't look at us. We're the government. We hate these guys. We hate people A, right? We hate people A. You should all hate people A. They brainwash the people into hating people A. That unites everybody in hatred, but at least they're united. That's how totalitarian states work in that form of a way. And no matter what you hear, it's not something that is relegated to the right side of politics. It's on the right, and it's on the extreme right, and it's on the extreme left. Okay? I would define probably 40k as being more on the right than on the left, but they do try, even back in the day, they tried very hard to steer away from things like that. The Imperium was literally like, we're not right or left wing. We fucking hate you all equally. All of you. All of you who are not human. We do not care what skin colour you are, where you come from. If you are human, you are good with us as long as you like the Emperor. You are good with us. If you don't, or you're not human, die. Right? That was the Imperium. It was black and white. Everybody who's not us is an other. And it was a beautiful piece of writing. It was simple, but it had a surprising amount of depth and nuance brought forward by things like the Eisenhorn novels, for instance. The reason why they were celebrated is because they showed the underbelly of the Imperium, and in a good way. We see in those books worlds like Goodrun and places like that are extremely pleasant to live in. He even goes on a very luxurious alpine train ride where he ends up getting laid by a hot lady doctor, James Bond style, right? And at no point does Dan Abnett, the book's author, state that this is only for the super rich. On this world, it is actually pretty normal to ride on lovely luxury trains like this. There are wonderful places to live in the Imperium. It's just the cost to protect them is often a price that only the most ruthless and dangerous are willing to pay. Without the Emperor, that is what we have come to. Okay? There are places out there that the Emperor will be proud to see in his Imperium, even back in the day. Goodrun being a good example, where you have thousands, maybe tens of thousands of worlds out there, maybe hundreds of thousands of worlds that are perfectly lovely and normal to live on. There will be worlds out there that are very much like Terra at the end, at the start of the 3rd millennium, right? Which is where we are now. If there are worlds out there very much like this one that are in the Imperium, that are aware that the Imperium exists, but they're not, they don't really do anything. They give a tithe, I suppose, but they don't really do anything else. It's a perfectly fine place to live. The Imperium protects places that sometimes are only vaguely aware that they're even being protected by the Imperium. What the Imperium is a massive shield between those worlds and chaos and demons and Xenos and raiders and pirates and heretics and all sorts of things that are trying to get in to destroy those worlds, because the Imperium isn't the thing in 40k that's on assault from all sides. It's humanity. Everybody wants us gone. Gone, dead. Or serving some primordial god in some dark emotional soup for the rest of our lives, right? Or unlives. That's what the Imperium is striving to protect us from. So no matter how bad the Imperium gets, remember, in old school 40k, we're only seeing the bad side of the Imperium because we're on the front lines. It's called Warhammer 40,000, not Nicehammer 40,000, right? We're on the front line of the combat, protecting these worlds. The reason why Eisenhorn is so loved as a novel series is because it shows life away from the front line. It shows you what you're fighting for. Beautiful writing, beautiful setting, loved it. Moving the setting on, though, saps a lot of the tragedy and irony from Warhammer 40,000. In a few words, bringing back Primarchs and leading a huge crusade brings hope. something pretty alien in 40k, or at least it should be. The players should be the ones giving hope to the setting. They should be the heroes. They should be the ones driving forwards and saving it, or annihilating it, on the tabletop. Introducing grand sweeping narratives is a good way to take the stakes away from the game as we go, at least in its current form. It's hard to rage against the dying of the light, like the game wants us to do, when Rabute Gilliman is standing behind you with a floodlight trained on you at full blast. The worst part about moving things forward for me, though, is the mess. Before, we had defined factions. I just told you what the Imperium was before, but we had defined factions. We had what they wanted, what they did, but now, everything seems to exist in this confusing grey sludge. The Imperium used to have a no-holds-barred approach to Xenos, to the point that the Ultramarines were the guys who would turn up in memes to slay figures from other sci-fi settings that they would likely find heretical. I seem to remember a meme of Jack from Mass Effect trying to seduce an Ultramarine, only for them to only be able to respond on the dialogue wheel with heresy, in which there is a purge the mutant in italics next to it, right? Because that's how far Jack would get in 40k. She would get a bolt of rounds to the face, straight away, right? That was 40k. Black and white. Your faction does what it does. Not anymore, though. And the reason why I've come to this is because recently, as a little aside project that I've been doing, just to keep my writing skills honed if I can, is I've been writing about the Silver Sabres. And I've been trying to write the Silver Sabres as a Dark Angel successor chapter, but with what the Lion has been doing, that's pretty much made it impossible for me to do so. I'll get into that a little bit later on, but the lore has become like fan fiction. It's hard to write fan fiction when the lore itself is fan fiction. You see, to get the setting moving forwards, Games Workshop had its actors, its characters, act in ways that we have been conditioned for 30 years to think that they would not. The Grey Knights and Ultramarines escorting an Eldar Witch to their Primarch to heal him, for instance? Are we serious? I didn't touch on that lot, as I think it's minor compared to what came after, but good lord. Good lord. Like, notions of the Necrons and Blood Angels becoming friends were meme-worthy back in the day, but, you know, now that wouldn't be considered that kind of a big deal. It would be kind of benign, you know? If the Necrons and Blood Angels story happened now, I honestly think people would just, like, shrug and move on. Back in the day, that was a huge controversy, and people were like, guys, can you just retcon this? It's ridiculous, right? That's how messy the motives of the factions are getting in Warhammer 40,000. This is end times level hogwash. End times level. That's what we're approaching in 40k. I'm not saying the end times are happening, for those of you who are going to jump on that. I'm saying this is end times level quality writing, as in not very good. Taking established characters and making them act in ways that are nonsensical from what has come before for 30 plus years. Not great. In moving the settings forward, we have factions acting in ways that the setting has told us for 3 decades that they would not. That they could not. And now here they are. The only dependable faction in the current 40k timeline is the Tyranids. The fucking Tyranids. They are the only guys to not let me down. Everybody else needs to be this tragic, misunderstood hero or something, and it's starting to really grate and get old. Here's the thing. Tyranids may be the only irredeemable people in the setting, let's be honest, but if Games Workshop could find a way, they would. I bet you they bring out something like the Hive Mind. He's trying to do a Reapers from Mass Effect, and he's trying to reserve everybody for an impending threat that no one even knows yet. He's trying to save everybody. I bet you that comes up. I bet you some shit like that will come up. I'm telling you now. You know? But right now, the Tyranids are the only ones acting as they should. The 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000, us moving the narrative forwards, should mean everything gets bigger and better. Everything gets its volume turned up to 11, and that's what we have in the Tyranids. They used to have Behemoth, then a bit of Leviathan, and now everyone's coming to the party. The entire thing's coming. We're all dead. It's going to be brilliant. That's how 40k should be. Escalation is where it should go. Right, I'm going to take a sip of my tea before I move on. Oh, Yorkshire tea. I'll tell you what. You miss the cold weather. You can have a nice cup of tea. And then, there is Lionel Johnson. As you all know, I've been writing some Dark Angels lore and I've had to stop. I've had to stop and reevaluate where the Silver Sabres are going to be from, because they cannot be Dark Angel successors anymore. Oh boy. In my rewrite, a while ago, I had him uniting the Dark Angels and Fallen through warfare and fighting a bigger threat. Right? Bigger fish to fry. That's literally the only way I saw how to do it if we have to redeem the Fallen. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure I would. One of the biggest things in 40k has always been the Fallen and the Unforgiven. Literally, almost from day one, this has been one of the biggest plot points of the entire setting. Yet, we solve it apparently in the current meta by having the Lion traverse the galaxy in his mind, somehow, which has become a forest, somehow, appearing before those he needs to appear in front of, and offering absolution to the Fallen after a single conversation with one of them. Is this where we are? 30 years of lore just thrown away so we can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya? Where is the grim dark? Where are the sacrifices and the times where the Lion perhaps lets his guard down and is almost betrayed and killed again? Why is the Lion seeking to protect people? That is not what his MO is in the original setting of the Horus Heresy. He was a badass, a duelist, a cold and calculating scalpel used by the Emperor to annihilate the greatest threats to mankind as a whole. The Lion didn't care about a few small worlds or empire building. In fact, the Lion despises the fact that Gilliman made Imperium Secundus when he meets him in the Unremembered Empire book. He calls his empire building something far worse, and that is a quote, something far worse than simply being a traitor like Horus is. He thinks Gilliman is worse than Horus for creating Imperium Secundus. He comes around in the end begrudgingly, but it is begrudgingly, but he thinks it's worse than what Horus is doing. At least Horus is upfront about his desires. He doesn't trust empire builders that aren't called the Emperor of Mankind. And yet here he is, in the current setting, back from the dead, building an empire of his own in Imperium Nihilus. Are you shitting me? It's like the writing team looked at Lionel Johnson from the Horus Heresy books and said, let's do the complete opposite of that, just for the lols. This is a mess. And this happened because we entrusted the setting moving forwards to a team that has previous in not being able to write. Oh, this is a ranty video. Don't even get me started on the Arcs of Omen. Just don't. Do not get me started on the Arcs of Omen. The last thing we needed in Warhammer 40,000 was another fucking MacGuffin for the Chaos people to go after. Enough with the MacGuffins. Enough with the Blackstone Fortresses. Enough with the keys. Enough with all of these Soulstone shard bullshit nonsense. Take that away and throw it in the sea. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about the next doomsday weapon that's been there all along, that people just haven't stumbled across in their time, that even the fucking Necrons know about, that somehow Chaos have gone and found yet again, to give them another power up, because the more we power Chaos up, the more we power the Imperium up. But the thing is, there are ways to do this without sounding like a fucking simpleton, and they don't seem to be able to handle it. They just don't. The Arcs of Omen shouldn't have happened. There's a reason why I stopped covering it on the channel. It's fucking nonsense. MacGuffin chasing nonsense. And it's what people do when they have writers who can't write. If you don't believe me, go and ask Mass Effect fans. Go and ask Dragon Age fans of the sheer amount of weird MacGuffins that start appearing in their games later on when the writers either change and get worse writers in, or they run out of ideas. Right? There's a thing called Meridian in Dragon Age, in Mass Effect Andromeda, and as soon as that came in, people started rolling their eyes, going, "Is this like the conduit in Mass Effect 1? Is it like the Reaper IFF in Mass Effect 2? You know, is it like the Crucible in Mass Effect 3? A MacGuffin? We're chasing a MacGuffin again because you run out of ideas because you can't write." That where we are now? Arcs of Omen is the same. Blackstone Fortresses, be still my torn, gaping anus. The fucking Blackstone Fortresses, again, are just a thing that's there to give Abaddon a reason for winning when he's been losing for 30 years. Don't start me with that bullshit, please. Please. Right? I'm fully aware that it's been hinted for a long time that the Black Crusades were leading to something. I'm fully aware of that, right? I'm fully aware. But there are better ways to do it than simply introducing yet another fucking MacGuffin. Why can't Abaddon just play 4D chess? Yeah, and hit the Imperium like a really good boxer. He's boxing the Imperium. He's playing rope-a-dope with the Imperium and hitting it just where he needs to set up his coup de grace. And his coup de grace is the 13th Black Crusade. He's weakening the Imperium in ways that, you know, are just right for him. As in just right for him to come in and lead a massive crusade that's going to change the entire galaxy and annihilate Cadia, finally. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with just making him a fucking genius on the battlefield? No, we've got to give him the MacGuffin. We've got to give him the Blackstone Fortresses. We've got to give him these power-ups because we can't figure out any other way to do it because we don't have fucking brains. The Arcs of Omen is just that. I have a key! I have a key! What does it do? It unlocks the thing! The thing has more power in it. Get out of here, please. Please. Just hire proper writers. Hire proper writers. Alright. Now, to fix these things. I'm sorry if I got shouty. I've not been shouty in a while. Now to fix things. Firstly. Now listen to me good. Listen to me good. I'm going to try and fix things. Listen to me. First of all, if you want more in-depth on how I would fix 40k, all of the lore videos on this channel deal with how I would fix that faction later on in the videos, right? The Grey Knights have one, the Ultramarines have one, Guilliman has one, Abaddon has one, right? They're all there, so go and watch those. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I don't want to go over old ground. What I'm going to do here is a Gestalt rebuild of Warhammer 40,000, right? An overarching rebuild, not minutia, okay? Right. All right. Firstly, and I cannot state this enough, Black Library writers are in charge of the overall lore of Warhammer 40,000 from now. Not Games Workshop studio writers who barely got a C in English and creative writing at school. First fix. Alright? Next, if we have to move the setting onwards, and I probably wouldn't from now on, now that I've seen how it goes, but if we have to move the setting onwards, we do it very slowly. We drip feed 1 or 2 big changes to the lore every 10 years in real life. For instance, Guilliman and the Indomitus Crusade, Magnus, Mortarion, and the Lion's Return should be the first 4 to come back from the period of 2017 to 2027. That's it. Nothing else happens in the lore in terms of the Imperium and the overarching story of the Imperium. Xenos players, I will get to you later on. But in the Imperium, this is what we do. In 10 years, we slow everything right down. We let people stew. We let people talk about the lore. We let people write their own stories, right? Angron can come back later as the big bad in the 2030 edition of Warhammer 40,000. Okay? That's when I would have done 10th edition, by the way. 2030. Yeah. But, you know, 9th being as broken as it is, I understand you can't do that. But, like, in an ideal world, yeah. This slows things down so that for every year that passes in the real world, 10 years pass in the fictional 41st millennium. So every 10 years that pass for us, 100 years pass in the 41st millennium, or 42nd millennium as we're going now. We don't stop people from writing lore in the time frame, even if we move on, right? So if we're in 2030 now and we're dealing with, you know, 42,100 onwards, right? You can still write stories from the 41st millennium. You can still write stories from before then. We're not dictating that to anybody, right? You can do whatever you want. It's a sandbox. You do what you want. But the official stories and books that deal with the central story of Warhammer 40,000's main factions move on this official timeline only. So everybody knows where to go to get their lore. Everybody knows what the state of the galaxy is straight away, at a glance. Everybody knows what's going on. Chaos, for instance, is given to Aaron Dembski-Bowden. The Imperium is given to Dan Abnett, Xenos to Gav Thorpe, and so on. I don't care what your opinions on these writers are. These are placeholder names, apart from ADB, who does Chaos really well. But those are the guys in charge of their umbrella, right? So ADB, Aaron Dembski-Bowden, he is in charge of the Chaos umbrella. And all the writers underneath him, writing stuff, and all the art teams beneath him, doing stuff, they're all doing stuff for Chaos going forwards. And they're liaising with everybody else. So if the Imperium are fighting Chaos in this one big battle, you know, ADB and Dan Abnett will talk, their teams will talk, and they'll come up with a really cool scenario that happens, you know. And it's fine. And everybody gets a win. You know, the Imperium wins some battles, Chaos win other battles. People are allowed to lose. If you want to go out and hire top sci-fi writers and artists who love 40k to come in, get them to come in and tidy things up. You're making all of this money, Games Workshop. Go to Marvel, go to DC, go to Dark Horse Comics, go to people like that and say, hey, stop working on Berserk, come over here and do a Warhammer thing instead. Stop working on that, come over here and do a Warhammer thing instead. Throw money at Henry Cavill. Hey, Henry, come over here. Here's what we're doing. Do you want to do a show? You can go do a show, that's fine. Do all of that stuff and move the setting forwards in that way. From here, I would like to have the 40k setting take on the Exile verse that we've been seeing in other videos, which follows a few main beats, right? So in terms of the actual lore and how we're going to change it, here are the few main beats, and there's 4 of them that I want to go over. So these are the things that are going on in the galaxy as we're moving the setting forwards past the 41st millennium, okay? Alright. Number 1. Abaddon splits the galaxy and rules the Imperium Nihilus, now called the Realm of the Despoiler, as his own empire, and it's expanding. The Blood Angels and others in that area of space are holdouts against his empire, right? So, shit has really hit the fan in Imperium Nihilus, and Abaddon rules Imperium Nihilus. He rules it, it's called the Realm of the Despoiler. He rules all of the area of space, and it's expanding all the time. And the only holdouts there are people like the Blood Angels, the Space Wolves, and other chapters and other forces of the Imperium that are behind enemy lines. They're literally fighting to maintain the one world that they're on. And they're doing a good job, because Abaddon's focused on pushing outwards, not fixing, you know, small little worlds that are inside of his purview. People like the Blood Angels become more piratical, right? They become like pirates. The Space Wolves especially become like pirates, because, you know, I would move Fenris, by the way, away from Terra and further north, so that it's in the Imperium Nihilus. Because I'd love the Space Wolves to be fucking Vikings in space. You know, actual Vikings, raiders, pirates. Anyway. Number 2. The Emperor will eventually return in the year 2030 in real world, but in a much diminished state thanks to the Grey Knights using the Terminus Decree to release him from the Golden Throne. We covered that in a previous video, so go and watch that video if you want to. This leads to two halves of the Imperium. Imperium Sanctus, ruled by the Emperor and the Ecclesiarchy. The Emperor now fully believes himself to be the avatar of a god. That's how the Emperor has changed in the warp, right? All of our belief and dogma has changed his soul. He now fully believes that he is a god. He's a nice, he's not really a nice guy, but he's not a despot, but he is a god, right? With all of the things therein. You know, he can be angry, he can be wrathful. He doesn't like people going against him. And Imperium Ultima, an empire of logic and science, ostensibly ruled by Guilliman as Lord Regent and his Ultramarines and successors as the main enforcers. This creates a nice three-way balance with clear and concise borders and desires that can rub up against each other to cause wars. So, if you're more of the science person, you can go and fight for Guilliman if you're a player. If you're more of the guy who loves the Empire, the Imperium as it was, in grim, dark, far future, you can go and fight for the Emperor, who's actually back, and you can go and praise him, right? He is only Primarch level, right? Because most of his power is still in the warp. This is technically an avatar of the Emperor. It's literally the Emperor as he looked in the Great Crusade, but he's Primarch level. He's Primarch sized. You know, he's basically the best of the Primarchs. This is a guy who could probably beat Horus before Horus was powered by Chaos. Okay? Alright, moving on. 3. Xenos are given a huge range update in this. They're led by the Tyranids, not led literally, but, you know, led in time by the Tyranids who get their remake first. As the full force of the Tyranids forces the myriad factions of the galaxy to work against the threat, sometimes together, before facing each other again across the battlefield, right? So if you really want to have both sides of the Imperium fighting together in a single army, you can do that, because the Tyranids are here, and sometimes the threat is so violent and so bad that people have to, you know, make desperate allies when they need to. The Eldar start to reclaim worlds in the Eye of Terror, shattering the veil between the Webway and the Eye of Terror to absorb a lot of the rampant warp energy there. Chaos Gods, they don't really care about the Eye of Terror anymore. They have the whole Great Rift now to play in. They don't really give a shit about this small little corner of the galaxy. Orcs win at Armageddon. You heard that right, they eventually do win at Armageddon and begin pushing out to establish Ghazghkul's growing empire. Ghazghkul has merged his soul with Yarrick. If we really have to kill him, I don't want to kill Yarrick, but there we go. Turning him into a weirdly noble orc emperor of sorts. The Tau are expanding and fighting the Death Watch and Ordo Xenos as they now invade the Imperium to keep expanding on both sides. The Dark Eldar are key to the Khan coming back eventually and unleash an age of piracy across the galaxy. Listen, everybody gets some love in the coming lore, even Xenos players. And by the way, it's lore that is clean, concise, you know where things are, you know what's going on, and you have a definite feel of the army you want to play and where you want it to be. Do you want to be a really violent loyalist chapter? That's kind of like Bad Boys, and they're like a biker gang on the edge of darkness, right? Go and play a loyalist faction in the Despoilers realm region. Go and play the Blood Angels, the Space Wolves, the Carcharodons, or something like that. Or a derivative therein, right? If you want to be what the Emperor always wanted back in the day, the old style of the Imperium as it's meant to be, go and play with Rabute Guilliman. Go and be on his side. Go and fight for his empire. His empire of logic. If you love the old school, grim dark 40k, go and fight for Imperium Sanctus. Go and fight for the Emperor. You know, we need to empower the Emperor. He's the one in the right. He's the guy who created all of the Primarchs. They should be subservient to him. How dare they, these heretics? How dare they turn against him? Go over there. Alright? If you're a Xenos player, you're everywhere. You can do whatever you want. You have this huge range to do whatever you want. Do you want to be an Eldar person who's reclaiming Maiden Worlds in the Eye of Terror? Go do it. You want to be an Eldar pirates out there who are raiding these different factions for cool bits of technology and then taking them back to the Eye of Terror to help rebuild the Maiden World? Go and do it. You want to be Dark Eldar who are actually raiding everybody and just keeping it for themselves and building Kimura to the fact where eventually Kimura can burst out of the webway and be this huge empire in the centre of the galaxy? Go and do it. You want to be the Orcs? You want to be the Orcs? You want to be Gazkul, pushing out into the galaxy, claiming shit for your own, actually making an Orc empire that's going to stand the test of time? Do you want to be another Orc who's going to take him on and eventually oust him as the main guy because he's too human now? Go do it. Tau, go do it. It's all there for you, right? And it's all nice and clean and concise. You know exactly what your faction is. You know what they want. You know what their motivations are, and you know what their core values are going forwards. All right, cool. Number 4, and this is the most important for me, at least. This is how it all works in terms of you buying the stuff. Number 4, core lore books, CLBs. Core lore books that move the story forwards come out 2 or 3 times a year. The massive big books, right, written by the writing teams. They've got artwork in there, and they are actual books. You know, they're actual, like the Horus Heresy books, they're actual novels. But they have artwork in there, and they have the straight lore in there as well. They are bordered in a gold sleeve and designated with an alliance and a number. So, Imperium Sanctus 1, for instance, would deal with the Emperor coming back, the Terminus Decree, and the Custodes on Terra. Imperium Ultima 1 would deal with the Black Legion attacking Ultramar, and Guilliman returning to the galaxy finally before beginning the Indomitus Crusade. This would be the second book series that begins release. Chaos 1 deals with the aftermath of the Black Legion trilogy by ADB and the Light Lords trilogy, also by ADB, as they merge into one. This deals with the fall of Cadia and the forming of the Great Rift before Abaddon sails to Ultramar to stop Guilliman, or to try and stop Guilliman from returning. Okay? Xenos 1 deals with the next Tau expansion wave and their discovery in that wave that the Tyranids are approaching from above and below the galactic plane, like jaws around prey. They pass this warning to the rest of the galaxy, and the only person or only people who seem to listen are the Eldar and Guilliman. There we go, right? That's how we start off. That's how we start off right at the start of 8th edition. That's where the lore goes. If you wanted to, you could even do it now. You could retcon a lot of the things that have happened and bring out these core lore books and say, this is where we're going from now on. These gold books are gold standard. These are what is going on in Warhammer, black and white. It's right here. So if you want to know what's going on with Xenos, buy Xenos 1. If you want to know what's going on with the Emperor, buy Imperium Sanctus 1. If you want to know what's going on with Guilliman and Imperium Ultima 1. It's all there. All there for you, straight away, ready to go, from the dedicated teams of talented people hired at the studio. There we go. Nice, clean, clear, concise lore around which fans can build. We have writers with dedicated voices working on dedicated factions, and no more 90 cooks spoiling the broth. As we all know, too many writers can sometimes mean that I get tonal whiplash from some of these factions, and we are there in the extreme now. But what do you think? Have I gone too far? Am I a bit of an old fuddy-duddy? Should I just get with the times? I don't know. But you let me know in the comment section down below. I think moving the setting forwards was a mistake, and I think if we're going to do it, this is probably the only way we can do it in a satisfactory manner. I have no idea what's going on in 40k anymore. It's starting to really irritate me. I don't know whether I'm being too harsh. You let me know in the comment section down below. I love you a long time. I will see you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.